Good evening. This is Eugene Chan on Straight Talk. We have invited the chairman of the Hong Kong Coalition of Professional Services, Mr. Ping Lau, this evening to ask him if there's a role for Hong Kong professionals to play in the wake of the 20th National Congress. Mr. Lau is a surveyor by profession and was the member of the Legislative Council in the year 2000 and 2004. Currently a member of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Mr. Lau has also sat on many public boards and government advisory committees. Welcome, PC.
Hi, welcome. Thank you, Eugene.
Right, PC, you know the National 20th Congress was held like 2 weeks ago, and there has been a lot of talks about it because it sets the policy for our country, the actual development for the next 5 years. You being a member of the CPPCC National Committee, you are there, and can you tell us what are the main messages for the Hong Kong people?
I think it's a very important one for the whole of the country as well as for Hong Kong. We have to look back the past 10 years under the presidency of Xi Jinping and what has been achieved so far in the past 10 years. For example, in terms of GDP growth and economic development, the GDP 10 years ago was about 54 trillion renminbi. And now, by the end of 2021, the GDP was 114 trillion renminbi, an increase of staggering 110%. And the share of the global economic growth, China is about 16 trillion US dollars, all right, which is about 70% of the US GDP. And it is more than 27 countries of the EU countries combined, all right? And it has contributed to 38% of the economic growth globally. Now, if you look at all these figures, and if you look at how it was like 10 years ago and 10 years later, we have to ask ourselves why China has been able to succeed so dramatically. When you compare to other countries, now China has a foreign exchange reserve of 3 trillion US dollars. If you look at the US, for example, they have a national debt of 32 trillion US dollars. Now, how do you compare all these figures? And you will find that the China model, the China form of modernization is quite different from the Western world. So different in a way that it does not exclude capitalism, but it combines capitalism together with socialism. It has market economy, it has planned economy, it has state-owned enterprises, it has private enterprise. So it is a hybrid type and different form of modernization as compared to the Western world. The 18th century Industrial Revolution, together with the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 19th century, makes people believe that the Western model of development and modernization is the only way out for the whole of the world. But actually, if you look at China's model, China's form of development, China is able to combine different forms of development, different models of modernization, and integrate it into their own needs. And therefore, if you compare all these objective figures, figures cannot tell lies, figures are most objective, and we'll be able to convey to the world that there is an alternative to the Western type of PC, development.
Yeah, thank you very much for telling the viewers such a big differences has been made in the last 10 years especially. So, but what are the main messages? I mean, the National 20th Congress is going to lay down the direction for the next 5 years. In short, what are the main directions that our nation is going to go?
Well, looking back the past 10 years is important because it will provide you with a trajectory of the China form of development. And from within that, I think Hong Kong will be able to learn from it. For example, Hong Kong has always been under the policy of positive non-intervention, believe in big market and small government, whereas China is a proactive government, which have their own planned economy, have their own 5-year plan for each 5 years. So I think we have to look ahead and then learn from Chinese experience, Chinese wisdom, and see whether we are able to copy or learn from the Chinese form of modernization to use in Hong Kong for our own good. For example, I noticed from the recent Chief Executive Policy Address that they're going to set up a Hong Kong Investment Corporation Limited, which I think is very similar to the Singapore model of Temasek Holdings, where government would invest their reserve in strategic industries.
So PC, so what you're saying is, from what we have learned and look at the National 20th Congress, it looks like Hong Kong is going to be more planned economy.
No. I think I'm not saying that we are going for a planned economy. I'm saying that we have to give up our positive non-intervention mentality. We have to be proactive. We cannot rely simply on the market. When the market fails to perform properly, government will have to come in. Say, for example, housing. All right, we cannot say that, oh, we leave it to a free market. But the free market doesn't help because there are lots of people who cannot afford high housing prices, high rents, and the government will have to come in, and therefore you have public housing programs, you have subsidized housing programs, and you have all sorts of subsidies. But however, I think Hong Kong also has to learn from the fact that we have a structural problem within Hong Kong. One example being that our economy relies too much on the market, and we have to make a well-balanced between the market economy and a well-planned economy.
So PC, apart from the policy, another thing that recently we have read that Mrs. Rita Fan and Mr. Lau Xiaogai also commented that the makeup of the new Political Bureau Standing Committee which will lead to a smoother implementation of the policies in Hong Kong, because many of those, the 7 important figures, have experience with Hong Kong's past in terms of work or indirectly with research. Do you agree? And do you think?
I agree with that, because I think if we look at Chinese political system, they have a persistency and consistency all along. Every government is for 5 years, and therefore the plan can be done every 5 years. Now that the presidency of the current government is extended, mostly extended for another 5 years. So they can plan ahead for 5 years or even 10 years. Presidency has been on the job for 10 years, and he is going to go for another 5-year term. So you have a 15-year term or even 20-year term or even 25 years term. And the persistency and the consistency and certainty of government policy will entice investment. And people in trades, in business, in finance will be able to plan ahead because they know what the policy is like. They're not going to change due to change of government like the Western world. So I think the persistency and the consistency and certainty of the Chinese government is very important to foreign investors and local investors alike.
PC, at the opening speech, President Xi also emphasized the critical role of Hong Kong, stressing that we have to implement our legal system and enforcement mechanism to safeguard national security and to firmly guard against any external forces. Is this kind of a reminder to the current government that we have to do our own Article 23 in terms of safeguarding the national security as well?
Well, of course, I think the government of Hong Kong has had big help and support from the central government. If you look at 2019, where we have the Black Cap violence, and the central government stepped in and timely and then legislate the national security law for Hong Kong. And that put Hong Kong back to the right track, and we're now back to normal. And with that in mind, I think we have to look at Hong Kong being part of China. We cannot escape our constitutional duty to establish the Article 23 law in Hong Kong by ourselves.
So PC, before we go to the break, I'll ask you a very quick question. You know that we expected to see the U.S. is going to use Hong Kong as a pawn to interfere with to put pressure on our nation for the next 5 years and beyond. Do you see that is there a potential role for Hong Kong's businesses or professionals that we can mitigate through trade dealings with the U.S. companies?
I think Hong Kong has a unique position and advantage under the one country, two systems arrangement, whereby we are well connected with China, mainland China. We are also at the same time well connected with the international community. And within Hong Kong ourselves, we have something like 7,000 foreign enterprises in Hong Kong, and we have close to 100 foreign chamber of commerce in Hong Kong. And this is a very, very good network. Together with something like 66 offices of TDC and ETO in the mainland and also overseas, I think we are able to use our network and use our advantage under the one country, two systems arrangement to make the best use out of this interconnectivity between the mainland and the international community. Hong Kong being in the sort of middleman, we are, as somebody said, we are super connected actually. We are able to speak the languages, we know the culture in China, and we are so close to the international community as a whole. And therefore, I think the role for Hong Kong as a whole, we are able to perform and play the role of an intermediator.
So you think it's going to help the sort of being a sort of mediation between the two countries, hopefully?
And if you look at recently, I think China has agreed to set up an international mediation center in Hong Kong. That is a very good mechanism. Instead of going into physical conflicts, we can negotiate through on-the-table negotiation and talk to each other in order to alleviate any contradictions or any differences and try to iron out differences on the table instead of going into physical conflicts.
Right, okay, we have to take a break now, but viewers, please stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back. We have been talking with Mr. Lau about the 20th National Congress, the opportunities that this has brought about to Hong Kong professionals and the role they can play. So PC, in the first part, you have told the viewers how China has done well in the last 10 years, and Hong Kong, we should start looking at the government trying to help to set policies for the businesses and the whole economy to grow. And we are entering into a new era. As you said, the 20th National Congress has decided to implement a Chinese-style modernization, while Hong Kong is being a new state of governance and prosperity. So as professionals, how can Hong Kong professionals, always being the core of Hong Kong businesses for so many years, how can we contribute to this national development and then helping Hong Kong professionals in general?
I think the 20th Congress lays out the long-term plan for the development of the country as well as for Hong Kong as well. And as professionals, if you look at the past history, before the reform and opening up, there was no concept of professional services in China at all right? Until China gained accession to WTO in 2001, then China's economy started to take off. And professional services started to get more seriously recognized on the mainland. And gradually, Hong Kong professionals took their inroads into the mainland market and gradually build up their presence and have a fair share of the market. However, China is still going to go into deeper reform and further opening up as advocated by President Xi in his speech in the 20th Congress. And that perspective, China's professional services mechanism and system are not really up to international standard yet. And this is one area I think we can use our past experience and share our experience, our systems, our connectivities, our clienteles to our counterparts on the mainland. And that will help them to build up their professional mechanism and system as well.
Right. But PC, President Xi has pledged his support to both Hong Kong and Macau to help us integrate better with the mainland. You just mentioned that as professionals, there's a role to play to help or assist the professionals on the mainland to have integration with the international standard as well. So what else would you say the Hong Kong government or professional bodies can ask the mainland government to support it at this juncture?
I think the initiation by the mainland government to go for the Belt and Road is a very good platform for Hong Kong to go for as well. Hong Kong government has a role to play. I think they can go together with us when they go to visit, for example, APEC, Southeast Asia, or any other overseas promotion trips. Professionals should go along with other commerce industries, together with government officials. If you look at the recent visit by German Chancellor Scholz, he went to China for 1 day, but together with him went a bunch of German enterprises, be they BMW, be they Siemens or Adidas,
yes.
all right, okay? So I think this is the way that the government should play. Many other governments in the world play the same role. And Hong Kong government should do the same, not only just commerce and industry people, but also professionals together with them. I think that will be one area that the government can help Hong Kong professionals. As well as on the mainland, I think, as I just said earlier on, we have 66 offices of TDC and ETO all over the world and on the mainland. These are also very good platforms for Hong Kong professionals to use to go into the market, to cooperate with our counterparts on the mainland, as well as to help out the commerce and industries on the mainland. And also, I think further to that, Hong Kong's connectivity to the international community is also a very good advantage for Hong Kong professionals to connect mainland enterprises through Hong Kong's platform with international enterprises together. Right. So I think these are the few areas I think government can do and we ourselves can do as professionals to further promote the professional services both on the mainland and also abroad.
Right. So PC, you being the chairman of the Hong Kong Coalition of Professional Services, where you're leading the major professionals organizations into different developments. We always talk about the GBA, the Greater Bay Area, that Hong Kong professionals should have the background of our motherland and then connecting with the world. So are the Hong Kong, especially young professionals, have they taken this encouragement and actually go inside to the GBA? Have you seen that?
Well, I think I can share my own personal experience. I went to Beijing for the first time in the early 80s, all right? But I was a bit timid because I knew nothing about the mainland market. I couldn't speak Putonghua at all right? Let alone I could not write the simplified Chinese characters. Right. But one thing good about going into China was that when you really went there, you will notice that they are not that, unfamiliar situations. You can gradually immerse yourself into the situation and also gradually get yourself accustomed to their way of life, the way they speak, and gradually learn to speak Putonghua and write simplified Chinese. So I think the advice I would give to young people and young professionals in Hong Kong is that if you are timid, if you don't have the guts to go into the mainland market, work for a Hong Kong company on the mainland first. If you're a student, go for internship for a Hong Kong company on the mainland, okay? That will give you more confidence and faith because you feel more comfortable speaking the same language, speak the same dialect, and you have the same Cantonese culture. And GBA being part of, Hong Kong being part of Guangdong, we have this similar culture, we have, even some dialects are very similar, and we may even have friends and relatives living in GBA.
Right. Now, PC, apart from this, a lot of Hong Kong people will say, if I'm going to like the mainland, I'm going to move there, how about the education of my children? How about the healthcare system? Can you tell the viewers, has there been much changes in the last few years, even in there's a very COVID situation right now?
Well, I think the mainland government has done a lot of support for Hong Kong people integrating into the Greater Bay Area. Recently, you have seen that the Hong Kong University of Science Technology have opened their campus in Guangzhou, and Hong Kong has also opened another secondary school and primary school called Mingxing, Mingxing meaning the heart of the people, a Hong Kong-run primary and
so it's very much like an international school for
well, it's not international school, but really I think it's a school that will integrate into the Greater Bay Area as well as connected to Hong Kong's DSE program.
Well, that's very good.
Students studying there, they will be able to come back to Hong Kong and get a seamless connection with Hong Kong's DSE program. So there's no worry about parents working in the Greater Bay Area where their children can also study in the Greater Bay Area without the worry that their program cannot be connected and recognized by Hong Kong. So I think this is a great boost for Hong Kong parents who are working in the Greater Bay Area.
How about for healthcare-wise?
Healthcare, for example, you have you are in the medical profession. You know that there is this Hong Kong U Shenzhen Hospital, which basically is run on Hong Kong system and using Hong Kong doctors, Hong Kong medical staff. So people will have more confidence in using the medical services. And there is also further new developments of some Hong Kong medications and medicines being recognized by the Chinese authority that you can bring over across the border, and doctors on the mainland can prescribe certain types of medicines used in Hong Kong as well.
Right.
So I think people will have more confidence in terms of education, medical supports, and medical services and healthcare.
So thank you for bringing some tips for professionals who have guts to really try to have a look at what's over the border. So in the last part of the show, we only have a minute or so left. I think one area of the policy address that has been stressing on is on Hong Kong's housing and land problems. I mean, you are an expert in housing. Do you think the proposed plan is going to alleviate the shortage issue that we have for Hong Kong? And also, can young professionals be able to have a home in Hong Kong?
I think the new initiative promulgated by the Chief Executive under his recent policy address is that they are going to create more land, and they're going to make better use of the Northern Metropolis concept. Being a metropolis, the concept is to increase not only just the development density, but also building another business center into the Northern Metropolis, together with innovation, technology, commerce, and industries. So if we look at the 9 new towns we have built in the past 30, 40 years, we have 3.8 million people living in these 9 new towns. And this Northern Metropolis concept will be able to provide not just living, but also employment, business, economic developments, and also together with the cross-border infrastructure connectivity to Shenzhen, I think we are going to bring forward and speed up our integration in the Greater Bay Area.
Right. So PC, so you're confident that this government is going to help solving the problem of housing for the people of Hong Kong?
I think the Chief Executive has also set up this steering committee on land and housing supply, and also a working group on public housing.
Right.
I think Hong Kong people will be able to find more new homes, and therefore find the new homes more affordable.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your insights into the 20th National Congress. It is indeed important for Hong Kong professionals to grasp the policy directions fully so that Hong Kong can play its role well as the gateway to the mainland. And have a pleasant evening and good night.